Today, we're going to talk about why the iPhone is not going to be getting any smaller, why the Apple Watch Series 9 is going to be worth the upgrade, some bad news about Apple's AR/VR headset and why it might not actually be coming at the Worldwide Developers Conference after all, the not so great iPhone 14 customer satisfaction reviews, a crazy AirTag story, and much more. All right, so we pretty much already know what to expect from the iPhone 15 this year, at least in terms of display size, but taking a look at next year with the iPhone 16, things are changing. And sadly, for those like myself who are a big fan of the mini iPhones, you're going to be upset to know that phones are not getting any smaller, they're actually getting bigger. According to display analyst Ross Young, Apple is planning to introduce a larger 6.3-inch iPhone 16 Pro and a massive 6.9-inch iPhone 16 Pro Max next year. Meanwhile, the regular non-Pro iPhones will have the same 6.1-inch and 6.7-inch display sizes, the 6.7-inch of course being the Plus model. And as MacRumors notes, this change to the display size could indicate a design change or a decrease in bezels, or both. We probably actually will see a continuous decrease in bezel size, but we might actually see some type of, other design change with the iPhone 16 since we're increasing the screen size. Whatever the case may be, let's hope that users like the iPhone 16 and the iPhone 15 more than the iPhone 14, because according to this new report, the customer satisfaction was the lowest it's been in over a decade. And this might come as a surprise since Apple recently referenced a study that claimed 99% satisfaction with the iPhone 14 series. But remember, we're comparing two different metrics here. So Perfect Rec, who is the one who did this study, their study focused on the base model iPhones only, not the Pros. And it looked at what percentage of reviews were 5 stars. Over the past several years, 5-star reviews for the base model iPhone have been steadily increasing, hitting a high of 80% with the iPhone 13. However, the iPhone 14 saw a significant 8% drop, with just 72% of users rating it 5 stars. And 8% doesn't sound like a lot, but considering the only other drop in the past 12 years was a 4% decline, which was for the transition to the iPhone 5 from the iPhone 4, this is twice as bad. So that 8% is pretty significant. So you might be wondering what has caused such a big drop in customer satisfaction. And this report, this study, has a few theories. So the first one is the rate of improvement didn't match customer expectations. There wasn't a big new must-have feature, and consumers didn't view the incremental improvements as worth it, so fewer of them rated it 5 stars as a result. And then the other one is a phenomenon called reputation inflation, where consumers habitually rate products 5 stars due to platforms like Uber, Airbnb, and Etsy encouraging such behavior. Oh, and another interesting thing from this study is that it shows the iPhone 5C is Apple's least loved phone, while the iPhone 13 Pro Max is the most loved. And they also saw a correlation with 5-star reviews with how much the product costs. So if it costs more, the user is more likely to rate it 5 stars, which is pretty interesting. And then in a separate study, another research firm, CIRP, showed that iPhone users are not upgrading as often as they used to. So back in March of 2019, about 26% of iPhone buyers had held onto their previous iPhone for 3 years or longer. But by March 2021, around 34% of iPhone buyers were replacing phones that were at least 3 years old. But this gets interesting in 2022 because that's when this trend took a U-turn. So only 20% of new iPhone buyers were coming from an iPhone that was at least 3 years old, and that is the lowest since 2019. So that means that a lot of people bought the iPhone 13 from an older device, and by now, by March 2023, we're back to people holding on to their phones for longer, which indicates that users really didn't see the iPhone 14 as a big upgrade. A lot of users upgraded to the iPhone 13 from those older devices. So just some really interesting data here. And I have to ask, how long do you go in between iPhone upgrades? A year, 2 years, 3 years? Let me know in a comment down below. So in just under 1 month, we're gonna be seeing Apple's AR/VR headset at the Worldwide Developers Conference on June 5th. However, we might not actually be seeing the headset get released until later on. And this news comes courtesy of a brand new Wall Street Journal report in which they corroborate a lot of the prior rumors, but they mention that while the headset is still on track to debut at the Worldwide Developers Conference, the report says this about production. Company engineers and executives have spent months preparing presentations with a demo version of the device for Apple's upcoming annual software conference in June, but it isn't expected to be delivered for most users until the fall at the earliest. Some Apple employees and suppliers have questioned whether the rollout could be delayed even further given the challenges with integrating the headset with new software, its production, and the broader market. Mass production of Apple's headset is not expected until September due to manufacturing delays. Shipment forecasts for 2023 are estimated at 200,000 to 300,000 units, according to Ming-Chi Kuo. So honestly, this does not surprise me one bit. I've been saying pretty much all along that we're probably not going to see the headset until like Q4 at the earliest, but this kind of reaffirms what we've been hearing before. But what's interesting is that they say most people will not be able to get their hands on it, which tells me we might see production kind of in waves. Like we may see the Apple Store go out of stock like 20 times throughout this year and just keep restocking, but in small waves. It'll be really interesting to watch. Now, switching over to the Apple Watch. So the Apple Watch Series 9 might be a much bigger upgrade than it seems on the surface, because according to Mark Gurman, this new Apple Watch is going to feature a new processor, not just a rebranded old processor. And this one is going to be based on the A15 chip. And even though that chip was first used in the iPhone 13, it is no slouch, especially when compared to what we have now in the Series 7 and the Series 8 with that S6 chip, which again, for the Series 7, it was just a rebranded, chip of what we had the year prior. So this one should give us a lot better performance and battery life than what we had the past 2 years. And these improvements might actually be completely like mandatory and necessary based on the leaks that we've heard about watchOS 10 getting those widgets changes and kind of the biggest change to watchOS since watchOS came out. So Mark Gurman is saying that this software is going to be massive for the Apple Watch, so it makes sense that we would need, more performance and more battery life out of the latest Apple Watch. Now, speaking of upcoming products, internal files in the latest iOS 16.5 software show that Apple is planning to launch some new headphones very soon, and those headphones are the Beats Studio Pro and Beats Studio Buds Plus. The Beats Studio Pro are expected to have a similar design to the Beats Studio 3, but with enhanced active noise cancellation, transparency mode, and a unique personalized spatial audio feature, along with a custom Beats chip that is powering it. Now, the code names also suggest that these will be developed in partnership with artist Samuel Ross. Meanwhile, the Beats Studio Buds Plus are expected to feature audio sharing, automatic device switching, and Siri voice commands. Now, we have not seen any type of official announcement or any type of release date for these headphones. However, Ben Geskin on Twitter shared that the Beats Studio Buds Plus just arrived at Best Buy, and he says that they are expected to release next week. So I would expect an announcement of these headphones to come as early as Monday. Now, going back to the Apple Watch real quick, I have to mention a pair of lives that were saved thanks to the fall detection feature on the Apple Watch. So this first story was from a Reddit user who credits the Apple Watch with saving his mom's life. He said this: "My mom was on a business trip in another state and staying in a hotel. She started to feel a pain in her chest and grew concerned. She texted her friend, who was also at the hotel, and asked her to come to her room, but she did not imply that there was an emergency. Immediately after this, she collapsed to the floor face first. And when her friend found her collapsed on the floor and called 911, she was told that the ambulance was already on the way because fall detection was triggered on the Apple Watch when she fell, and it dialed emergency services on its own when she didn't respond. And doctors later revealed that she was in critical condition with a ruptured aorta." And honestly, if she didn't have that Apple Watch on and she didn't have, immediate transport to the hospital, she may not even be alive. And the second story involves a man in Minnesota who was hit by a car in his driveway, and the driver, who was later identified by police, hit him and then sped off. Now, thankfully, this man was wearing an Apple Watch because when he was hit, the watch registered the impact as a hard fall. So when he did not respond to the notification from the Apple Watch, it automatically called emergency services and also texted his emergency contacts. He laid there with injuries to his ribs and tailbone until his family found him thanks to the messages that were automatically sent out. And what makes this story even more awesome is that Tim Cook himself responded to his message about the incident wishing him a speedy recovery and reiterated the importance of the fall detection feature. And that's exactly why I'm here, is to reiterate the importance of the fall detection feature. And if you don't have an Apple Watch, especially if you're older, I would highly recommend getting an Apple Watch and just have that fall detection feature turned on. I've seen it time and time again, saving lives. And you don't want it to happen to you, but it's possible, and it's definitely a reason to have an Apple Watch and make sure that feature is always turned on. So remember last week how we discussed a check that was signed by Steve Jobs was going up for auction and that the current bid was around $20,000? Well, yeah, that check just sold, and it sold for a lot more than $20,000, 5 times that amount, because it just sold for $106,985. And while that seems like a lot of money, I think that this buyer got a great deal on this. I mean, this is a piece of history here. Not to mention, there was a Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak signed check also from 1976 that sold last year for $164,000. And that one was only in very fine condition, and this recent one was in pristine condition. So I think that this newer one was also in better condition. So yeah, I think this collector got a pretty good deal on this, and I think it will continue to go up in value over the next decade or so. And then finally, as is tradition here on this Apple Weekly series, we have to talk about another crazy AirTag story. So some of you might remember this from last Halloween, but an armored Brinks truck was robbed in Chicago, where 2 brothers allegedly stole over $1.1 million from an armored truck and an ATM. And court documents just revealed that an AirTag, which was hidden in one of the bins of money, helped investigators track down the suspects. So just as a recap, here's what happened. The brothers allegedly brandished handguns and stole cash from both the courier and the ATM. They then forcibly dragged the courier into the armored truck, ordering her to open inner compartments and hand over more bags of money. Now, the robbers got away with approximately $121,000 from the courier and ATM and $904,000 from the armored truck. But little did they know, an AirTag was secretly tracking their movements the whole time. So once the robbery was reported, Brinks contacted the FBI and informed them about the hidden AirTag, which was providing live location updates of the stolen money. And then within an hour of the robbery, the tracking device led the FBI to the suspect's home, where they were busted. So that is wild stuff, and that just shows that there are so many different use cases for the AirTags, like catching thieves, saving lives. There's so many different ways of using AirTags that Apple definitely did not even think about when they released these, but I can see, a lot of people and even law enforcement agencies using AirTags now, which is just wild to see. But anyways, guys, there you have it. That is the latest news from this past week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel and also to my Appleton newsletter, which are both linked down in the description below. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.